Monday, 6:14 a.m. A wire transfer notification. No sender name, no explanation. Just a number. And a single line underneath it. Spend it all within 7 days, or lose everything. You open the app twice. The first time, your thumb is shaking too much to read it properly. $1 billion, sitting in an account with your name on it, earning $137,000 a day in interest, because even at a conservative return, $1 billion makes money just for existing. That's the first thing you understand about wealth like this, before you've spent a single dollar of it. Money like this doesn't wait for you. It works, whether you do or not. The rules load in a second message a minute later. No donations, no gifts, no transfers to family, no wire to a friend, no check with your name crossed out. Every dollar has to leave in exchange for something you now legally own: property, goods, shares, contracts, something with a title, a deed, a bill of sale. By 7 a.m., there's a man in a gray suit outside your door. Account liaison. He introduces himself once, hands you a card, and tells you he'll be there every morning, at this exact time, until the account closes. You ask him who sent the money. He tells you that's not information he's authorized to share. Only that the account is real, the rules are binding, and the clock started the moment you open that first message. You ask what happens to him if you fail. He doesn't answer that one at all. He just checks his watch, and reminds you that you've already used 4 minutes of day one standing in your doorway. You don't sleep much that night. Not because you're worried. Because you're doing math you've never had a reason to do before. Trying to imagine what $1 billion actually looks like, spread across 7 days, and failing completely, no matter how many times you run the numbers. Day 1. The easy money. Your first instinct is the same one anyone would have. Property. A $22 million penthouse. A $40 million estate 2 hours outside the city. A ski chalet in Aspen you've seen in a magazine once and never thought about again until this exact morning. Real estate is the fastest place to put large money, because unlike almost anything else you can buy, a deal like this can legally close in a single day, if the seller wants it to. No waiting period, no regulator. Just a title company, a wire, and a signature. You call the agents. Every single one answers on the first ring. That's the first thing that tells you this is real. Not the number in the account. The ring count. By lunch, 6 properties across 4 states. $118 million. Gone before the coffee gets cold. Then watches. A private sales advisor from a Geneva house you'd never heard of a week ago walks you through 11 pieces that don't have public price tags. Because pieces like this don't go to auction, they go directly to people who already know they want them. $34 million in 90 minutes. Then cars, not one. Every current year hypercar allocation your dealer's network can locate, bought as entire production slots instead of single units. Because the moment you need more than one of something, buying the whole batch is faster than negotiating 6 separate deals. $61 million. Somewhere in the middle of all this, you stop for a second, standing in a garage that didn't exist this morning, surrounded by cars you couldn't have named a week ago, and you notice something strange. None of it has actually made you feel anything yet. It's just numbers changing on a screen, attached to objects you haven't even touched. By the time you go to bed, you've spent $213 million. $787 million left. 6 days on the clock. Here's what you don't know yet. Day 1 is, by a wide margin, the easiest money you'll spend all week. And that's not a feeling, it's a fact about how markets work. Luxury goods markets are built for fast, high-value, low-friction transactions, because the people who normally buy at this level expect exactly that kind of speed. That's about to change. Day 2. The ceiling. The liaison is at your door, at 7 a.m. sharp. You almost don't notice him this time. Private aviation first. A jet you'll actually use, plus 2 more you probably won't. Bought purely because they're available. And availability, you're learning fast, is the only real currency in this entire challenge. $145 million across 3 aircraft. Brokers in 3 different cities working the phones at the same time, so the deals don't collide with each other. Then a superyacht. 280 feet. Full contract price due today, even though delivery is 18 months out. Because if the money doesn't leave the account today, it doesn't count, no matter what you're promised in return. $190 million. The crew requirement alone is 34 people. You haven't hired a single one of them yet. That's a problem for later, and there are going to be a lot of those by the end of this week. By early afternoon, another $335 million moved. $452 million left. 5 days on the clock. And here's the mechanic that starts working against you, starting today. Every luxury category has a ceiling, not because of price, Because of supply. There are only so many hypercars built each year. Only so many shipyards capable of building a superyacht at all, and most of the good ones are already booked years out. You try to buy a second superyacht that afternoon, just to see if it's possible. Every major broker gives you some version of the same answer. Nothing available. Next slot, 2 years out. You offer double the asking price on one currently under construction for someone else. The answer is still no, because the buyer ahead of you in line isn't selling their spot for any amount of money, and there's nothing you can do about that. Money moves fast. Contracts move slower. Human decisions move slower still. You've spent 45% of $1 billion in 2 days. That was the fun half. The next 55% is where the real problem starts. Because it stops being about how much money you have. It becomes about how fast the world can legally hand things over to you. Day 3. Why buying a company is faster than buying a yacht. $452 million. 5 days left. That means moving roughly $90 million a day, every day, without a single slow one. Luxury goods can't sustain that pace without buying duplicates of things you already own. And at that point, it stops being spending. It starts being hoarding. So the strategy shifts to something most people wouldn't think of on their own. Buying entire businesses, in cash, from private owners. Here's why this actually works. A private company, unlike a public one, doesn't answer to securities regulators, or a shareholder vote, or a mandatory waiting period. If the owner agrees to a price, the deal can close as fast as the lawyers can draft the paperwork, sometimes in 48 hours. Institutional farmland first. Not a single ranch. Entire blocks across Iowa and Nebraska, the kind that trade like financial assets rather than family land. $80 million, closed the same day, because the seller is a pension fund, not a family. And pension funds move at the speed of a signature, not the speed of an emotional decision. Then a mid-sized manufacturing company. Not hostile, not complicated. The family that owns it has been trying to sell for 2 years, and nobody had offered cash before. $120 million. 4,000 employees, now technically working for you. Buy dinner. $200 million, moved in a single day, more than double the pace of day one, using a completely different mechanism than anything you tried before. $252 million left. 4 days on the clock. That night, sitting in a hotel room that isn't even one of the 6 properties you now technically own, you realize something. None of this feels the way you thought $1 billion would feel. It feels like a job. A strange, extremely fast job, with a deadline that doesn't care how tired you are, and a to-do list that somehow gets harder the smaller it gets. Day 4. Where the money actually goes. You try something nobody on your new 3-person team recommends. A regional grocery chain. 40 locations. 6,000 employees. Family owned for 3 generations. Currently for sale because the founder's grandchildren have no interest in running it. The number they want is $180 million. You don't negotiate. Negotiating costs time you don't have. And this week, time is worth more than any discount you could squeeze out of them. You wire it that afternoon. 40 stores and a supply chain you understand almost nothing about, all attached to your name by dinner. Later that evening, your team flags something you hadn't considered. Owning a grocery chain doesn't just cost the purchase price. Payroll alone runs into the millions every month. Inventory, refrigeration, delivery contracts. All of it keeps running, whether you're paying attention or not. You didn't just buy a company. You bought an ongoing obligation that has nothing to do with the countdown you're racing against. And everything to do with the 6,000 people who show up to work there tomorrow morning, expecting a paycheck at the end of the month. It's the first purchase all week that makes the number in your account feel like something other than a scoreboard. 72 million left. 3 days on the clock. For the first time all week, the number remaining feels small. Not in any normal sense. $72 million is still more money than almost anyone will ever personally touch. But small, compared to where you started. Small enough that you actually start to believe you might finish early. You don't know it yet. But the last $72 million is about to take longer to spend than the first $928 million combined. And the reason is a rule almost nobody outside of finance ever has a reason to think about. Day 5. The rule that breaks the challenge. Here's the mechanic that defines the rest of the week, and honestly the whole point of this story. The bigger your remaining balance, the more sellers exist who can absorb it. The smaller it gets, the more you collide with rules that were built for ordinary transactions, not billion-dollar sprints. At $787 million, almost anything you wanted, someone was ready to sell, because markets built for extreme wealth are designed for exactly this kind of speed. Sellers at that level expect large, fast, cash offers. They're built for it. At $72 million, you're suddenly stuck in an awkward middle zone. Too big for a boutique purchase to make a dent. Too small to justify the paperwork of a true institutional deal. You try to buy a stake in a public company. Even a small stake triggers disclosure requirements. In most markets, crossing a certain ownership threshold, often somewhere around 5%, means a mandatory public filing and a waiting period before the deal is allowed to close. That waiting period exists specifically to stop transactions from happening faster than regulators can review them, and it doesn't care who you are or how much cash you're offering. You don't have a waiting period to spare. You have 3 days. You try a second manufacturing deal instead, verbally agreed by Thursday morning. But the seller's lawyers need until, in their words, early next week to finalize the paperwork. You don't have next week, you have Sunday night. You try one more thing. A direct offer on a mid-size hotel group, hoping a hospitality deal might move faster than industrial ones. It doesn't. The chain is owned by a family trust, and trusts, it turns out, are almost designed to move slowly. Every decision needs sign-off from beneficiaries scattered across 3 countries, none of whom are in a hurry, because none of them are the ones with a clock running out. $54 million of the $72 million is still sitting there, untouched, by the end of day 5, 2 days on the clock. The liaison tells you, almost gently, that at this scale, speed itself has become the most expensive thing you're trying to buy. And it's the one thing that no amount of money can guarantee you. Day 6. Spending without diligence. You stop trying to be clever. You call every high-end real estate agent your team has spoken to all week, and give them one instruction. Anything that can close in 24 hours. Cash, no contingencies. Send it now. By evening you own 4 more properties you've never actually seen. A beach house in the Hamptons, a ranch in Wyoming, a lakefront estate in Michigan, an apartment in a building you can't even picture. $41 million. Gone in 6 phone calls. Because at this point, seeing the property in person would cost you time you don't have. This is the trade-off nobody explains about spending money fast. Speed and due diligence are opposites. The faster you're forced to move, the less you're allowed to actually verify what you're buying. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you know at least one of these 4 properties probably has a problem you'll discover in a month. A lien, a structural issue, a boundary dispute. There isn't time to care about that today. Then art, not an auction, a private advisor deal. 11 pieces, no visible price until you ask. You buy 9 of them, not because they're the best 9, because your advisor tells you those 9 have the fastest transfer paperwork. You're not collecting anymore. You're clearing inventory. $11 million. $2 million left. 1 day on the clock. And for the first time all week, you genuinely believe you're gonna make it. Day 7. Why the last dollar is the hardest dollar. The last $2 million should be the easiest money of the entire week. It's the hardest. Every large purchase now feels absurd, measured against a number this small. You don't need another car, another watch, another acre of anything. The liaison sits across from you at 9 a.m. and tells you the truth, almost gently. The hardest money to spend on a deadline is never the first 100 million. It's the last 2. Here's the mechanic behind that feeling. Spending efficiently means matching the size of a purchase to the size of the remaining problem. A $180 million grocery chain solved a $180 million problem in a single signature. $2 million can't be solved the same way. It has to be broken into a dozen small, unrelated purchases, each one requiring its own negotiation, its own paperwork, its own phone call, on a day when you have almost none of those things left to spend. Small money, it turns out, is administratively expensive to move. A rare wine collection. $600,000. A private chef's full-year contract, paid in advance. $400,000. A block of parking garages in a city you'll probably never visit, bought purely because the deed transfers the same day. $700,000. By 6 p.m., you have $130,000 left, and the panic sets in properly for the first time all week. You call 3 separate dealers looking for anything at all, that can close before midnight. 2 don't answer. The third offers you a rare coin collection nobody in your circle has ever heard of, at a price that seems made up on the spot. You don't argue. You wire it. $90,000. By 8 p.m., $40,000 left. 6 hours on the clock. You spend it on the most anticlimactic purchase of the entire week. A lifetime membership, and a small ownership stake in a private club none of your advisors have even heard of. Structured, verified and wired, with 4 hours to spare. At 11:59 p.m., your account reads $0.00. You sit down on the floor of a house you closed on 6 days ago, and haven't slept in once. And you don't feel triumphant. You feel like you just finished the hardest week of work you've ever done. spending money that was never supposed to feel like labor. The takeaway. The liaison's final message arrives the next morning. No name attached, no explanation of who sent the original transfer. Just a single line. You spent it. Most people don't. He tells you, almost as an afterthought, that in 6 years of running this account for other people, you're only the third person to actually reach zero before the deadline. The others still, technically, own a small piece of the interest that reverted the moment their clock ran out, unspent. You ask him what happens to the people who fail. He tells you the money simply goes back to wherever it came from, and the person goes back to whatever life they had before Monday morning. Except now they know exactly what $1 billion feels like to lose, in a way most people never will. You ask him why anyone would design a test like this. Why hand someone $1 billion, just to watch them race a clock to lose it? He tells you the money itself was never really the point. The real test was whether you'd spend a week of your life proving you understood the difference between having money and moving money. Because almost everyone who has ever dreamed about $1 billion has only ever pictured owning it. Sitting in an account. Growing quietly. Safe. Almost nobody pictures the 7 days it actually takes to make it disappear on purpose, and what you learn about money in the process. Here's what the week actually proved, and it's the part worth remembering long after the story ends. Having money and moving money are two completely different skills. The first $928 million spent itself, almost effortlessly, because markets are built to sell to people operating at that kind of scale. The last $72 million required real strategy, because the same rules that protect ordinary investors, disclosure laws, waiting periods, diligence requirements, apply no matter how much cash happens to be sitting in your account. That's the real reason the ultra-wealthy almost never spend their fortunes down to zero. It isn't that they don't want to. It's that the faster you try to move money, the more the world's own rules slow you down. And the money you haven't spent yet keeps earning, quietly, the entire time you're waiting. Which is exactly why, for most people who actually have this kind of wealth, the balance only ever grows. You made it to zero. Almost nobody does. And by Wednesday, when the adrenaline wears off, you'll spend a long time trying to figure out whether that actually makes you the winner of this story, or just the only person foolish enough to finish it. If you had 7 days and $1 billion, and every hour of hesitation cost you $137,000, you could never get back, what would you buy first? And be honest, what do you think would still be sitting in your account, with 4 hours left on the clock?